He forced his ex-wife to sing at his multi-millionaire wedding to mock her. But what happened next? She stood backstage at the most expensive wedding Manhattan had seen in years, 7 months pregnant, clutching a microphone that was about to become a weapon. In exactly 4 minutes, Nadia Moreau would step onto that stage and sing at her ex-husband's wedding. The same man who'd abandoned her when she told him about their baby. The same man who'd forged her signature on divorce papers so he could marry his boss's daughter faster. They thought hiring her was the ultimate humiliation, the discarded wife performing for pocket change while he married into millions. They had no idea what was coming. Have you ever discovered the person you love isn't who they claim to be? When the man you married has been living a lie, how can you trust anything was real? Every kiss, every promise, every whispered, "I love you," were they all just rehearsals for his next performance? Would you forgive someone who hid their entire identity, even if they did it for love? Nadia wouldn't. And in 4 minutes, 400 of Manhattan's elite were about to learn why you should never underestimate a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to expose. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted completely, drop a comment below and let me know your story. And stay with me, because what happens next will leave you speechless. 5 years earlier, Nadia's life had been completely different, and so had Marcus. She'd been performing at the Blue Note, a cozy jazz club in Greenwich Village, when she first saw him. He was sitting alone at a corner table, nursing a whiskey, his tie loosened after what looked like a long day. But the moment she began singing, "The Way You Look Tonight," his eyes never left her. After her set, he'd approached with a nervousness that was almost endearing for a man in a suit. "I've never heard anyone sing like that," he'd said, stumbling over his words. "You made that song feel like it was written just for this moment." Nadia had laughed, charmed by his sincerity. "That's the job. Making old songs feel new. Can I buy you a drink, or coffee, or anything that means you'll stay and talk to me for 5 more minutes?" Those 5 minutes turned into 3 hours, then into daily phone calls, then into a love that consumed them both. Marcus wasn't wealthy then. He was a junior accountant at a mid-sized firm, working 60-hour weeks and still struggling to pay off student loans. His apartment was a studio in Queens with a radiator that clanked all night and a refrigerator that only worked half the time. But when he looked at Nadia, she felt like the wealthiest woman alive. Their first real date was a picnic in Central Park, because Marcus couldn't afford the restaurant he'd wanted to take her to. He'd been embarrassed, apologizing for the cheap wine and grocery store sandwiches. "This is perfect," Nadia had said. Meaning it, she'd laid her head on his shoulder while they watched the sun set behind the skyline. "I don't need expensive things, Marcus. I just need someone who sees me." "Too. I see you," he'd whispered, kissing her forehead. "I see everything." 6 months later, he proposed with a ring he'd saved for over a year to buy. It wasn't large, a simple diamond on a silver band, but Nadia cried when he got down on one knee in the same spot where they'd had that picnic. "Marry me," Marcus had said, his voice shaking. "I can't promise you mansions or luxury cars, but I promise I'll spend every day trying to make you as happy as you make me." She'd said yes without hesitation. Their wedding was small, just 40 guests in a community church in Brooklyn. Nadia wore a dress from a vintage shop that cost $200. Marcus wore his only suit. Joelle was maid of honor, and Marcus's college roommate was best man. The reception was in Joelle's backyard, with string lights and a homemade cake. Nadia sang their first dance song herself, standing barefoot in the grass while Marcus held her like she was made of something precious. "I love you," he'd murmured against her hair. "Nothing will ever change that. No matter what happens, you're my person." She'd believed him completely. The first 3 years of marriage were everything Nadia had dreamed of. They lived in a cramped, 1-bedroom apartment in Astoria, splitting bills and cooking dinner together every night. Marcus would come home exhausted from work, and Nadia would be practicing scales for her next performance. "Sing for me," he'd say, collapsing onto their second-hand couch. "You're the only thing that makes sense after days like this." So she would sing, and he would close his eyes and smile like he'd won the lottery. Nadia took gigs wherever she could: weddings, private parties, hotel lounges. Her dream was to record an album someday, but money was tight. So she also started teaching voice lessons to supplement their income. "You're so talented," Marcus would say, massaging her shoulders after long teaching days. "One day, everyone's going to know your name, and I'll be the guy who gets to say, 'I married her when she was still singing in dive bars.'" They'd laugh and make love and talk about their future. Children someday. A house with a backyard. Growing old together. But slowly, so slowly, Nadia almost didn't notice things began to shift. In year 4, Marcus got promoted to senior accountant. Better salary, longer hours, higher stakes. He started coming home later, more stressed, more distant. "I'm just tired, babe," he'd say when Nadia asked if everything was okay. "This job is demanding, but it's going to pay off. Trust me." She did trust him. That was the problem. By year 6, Marcus landed the position at Laurent Industries, a prestigious firm that handled accounts for some of Manhattan's wealthiest families. The salary was double what he'd been making. Suddenly, they could afford a nicer apartment, better clothes, dinners at restaurants Nadia couldn't even pronounce. But Marcus was different now. Polished, ambitious, hungry for something Nadia couldn't quite name. "You should update your wardrobe," he'd suggested one night, eyeing her casual dress. "I'm meeting with important clients now. Image matters." Nadia had laughed it off. "I'm a singer, not a corporate wife." "Not yet," Marcus had said. She hadn't understood what he meant. Not until it was far too late. Marcus's first day at Laurent Industries changed everything, though Nadia wouldn't realize it until much later. André Laurent was old Manhattan money, the kind of wealth that didn't just open doors, it owned the buildings the doors were attached to. His firm managed portfolios for politicians, celebrities, and corporate moguls. Getting hired there meant Marcus had finally broken through the glass ceiling that had kept him grinding in mediocrity for years. "This is it, Nadia," Marcus had said the night he got the offer, practically glowing. "This is our ticket to the life we've always wanted." "I thought we already had the life we wanted," Nadia had replied softly. But Marcus was too excited to hear her. Within weeks, everything changed. Marcus started working 12, 14, sometimes 16-hour days. He'd come home after Nadia was already asleep and leave before she woke up. Their conversations became transactional bills, schedules, logistics. No more singing while he listened. No more late-night talks about dreams and fears. "I'm building our future," he'd snap when she complained about never seeing him. "This takes sacrifice, Nadia. I thought you understood that." She tried to understand. She really did. But then came the comments. "You're still doing those wedding gigs?" Marcus asked one Saturday morning, his tone dripping with judgment. "Don't you think it's time to aim higher? My colleagues' wives are interior designers, gallery owners, philanthropists. You're singing Ave Maria for strangers." The words stung more than Nadia wanted to admit. "Love doesn't pay for the lifestyle we're about to have." Marcus was scrolling through his phone, barely looking at her. "André's invited us to a gala next month. His daughter Vanessa will be there. I need you to make a good impression." That was the first time Nadia heard Vanessa's name. The gala was held at the Plaza Hotel, a world of champagne fountains and designer gowns that made Nadia feel like an imposter. She'd bought a dress from Bloomingdale's sale rack and spent an hour on her makeup, trying to look like she belonged. Marcus had barely glanced at her. "That's what you're wearing? What's wrong with it?" "Nothing. It's fine." But his eyes said otherwise. Vanessa Laurent was everything. Nadia wasn't blonde, polished, dripping in diamonds that probably cost more than Nadia's annual income. She worked as the director of client relations at her father's firm, a title that seemed to involve mostly hosting parties and charming wealthy men. "Marcus has told me so much about you," Vanessa had said, her smile sharp as a blade. "You're a singer, right?" "How?" Quaint. Nadia had felt Marcus stiffen beside her. Nadia's very talented. She performs all over the city. Ask. Nadia. 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 I'm sure she does. Vanessa's eyes had flickered over Nadia's dress with barely concealed amusement. Marcus, Daddy wants to introduce you to the Rothstein account. Excuse us? And just like that, Marcus had disappeared into the crowd with Vanessa, leaving Nadia standing alone with a glass of champagne she didn't want. That night, in the car ride home, Nadia had tried to talk about it. She was rude to me. She's Andre's daughter. She can be however she wants. Marcus kept his eyes on the road. You're being sensitive. Crime. Crime. I'm being honest. She looked at me like I was dirt on her shoe. Maybe if you'd worn something more appropriate, she would have taken you seriously. The words hit like a slap. Nadia turned to stare at her husband, this man who used to think she was beautiful in a $15 sundress, and barely recognized him. Who are you? She'd whispered. Marcus didn't answer. The distance grew wider after that. Marcus started attending evening events without her, networking dinners and client meetings that always seemed to include Vanessa. When Nadia asked to come along, he'd make excuses. It's business, not social. You'd be bored. I want to support you. You support me by understanding that this is what success looks like. Nadia threw herself into her work to fill the emptiness. She took more gigs, more students, more anything to avoid sitting alone in their apartment, wondering when her marriage had become a business arrangement. Then came the night that shattered everything. Nadia had felt off all week, exhausted, nauseous, emotional. At first, she thought it was stress, but when she missed her period, she'd bought a pregnancy test on the way home from a teaching session. She'd taken it in the bathroom of a Starbucks because she couldn't wait. 2 pink lines appeared immediately. Pregnant. Nadia had stared at those lines for 10 minutes straight, cycling through shock, fear, and then slowly, beautifully joy. A baby. Their baby. Maybe this was exactly what she and Marcus needed. A reminder of what mattered. A reason to reconnect. She'd gone home early, planning to surprise him with the news over a nice dinner. She'd even stopped at his favorite Italian place to pick up takeout, splurging on the expensive wine he liked, which she now couldn't drink, but he could celebrate. The apartment was dark when she arrived, which was strange. Marcus usually texted if he'd be late, but his car was in their parking spot. Nadia's heart had started beating faster as she climbed the stairs. Something felt wrong. The air felt wrong. She'd unlocked the door quietly, not knowing why she was being quiet, and then she heard it. Vanessa's laugh, high and bright, and coming from their bedroom. Nadia's hands had gone numb. The takeout bag slipped from her fingers, containers spilling across the floor. But she barely noticed. She was moving toward the bedroom like a woman in a dream, a nightmare, her feet carrying her toward the truth she wasn't ready to see. The door was half open, and there they were, Marcus and Vanessa. In the bed Nadia had shared with him for 7 years. Tangled together in sheets Nadia had washed just that morning. Vanessa's blonde hair spread across Nadia's pillow. They didn't even notice her at first. They were too lost in each other. Nadia's world tilted sideways. The pregnancy test was still in her purse. She'd been coming home to share the happiest news of her life. Instead, she'd found her husband committing the ultimate betrayal. Marcus. Her voice came out steady somehow. Calm. Like she was asking him to pass the salt, instead of explain why he was destroying their marriage in real time. They sprang apart. Vanessa grabbed a sheet. Marcus went pale, then red, then pale again. Nadia, this isn't... Get out, Nadia said to Vanessa, her voice still eerily calm. Get dressed and get out of my home. Vanessa had the decency to look uncomfortable for about 3 seconds. Then she lifted her chin with the same arrogance she'd shown at the gala. Marcus, should I wait for you downstairs? The question hung in the air like poison. She was asking him to choose. Right there. Right then. Marcus pulled on his pants, not meeting Nadia's eyes. Yeah, Give me 10 minutes. Nadia felt something inside her break. Not her heart that would come later. Something deeper. The foundation of who she thought she was. Who she thought they were. Vanessa dressed slowly, deliberately, like she was proving a point. She walked past Nadia without a word. Her perfume expensive, cloying, lingering in the air. The apartment door clicked shut. And then it was just Nadia and Marcus. 7 years of marriage standing between them like a canyon. How long? Nadia asked. It doesn't matter. How long? Marcus ran his hands through his hair, a gesture she'd once found endearing. Now it just looked like guilt. 3 months. Since I started at Laurent. 3 months. A quarter of a year. All those late nights. All those networking events. I'm leaving you, Marcus said suddenly, his voice cold. Businesslike. Like he was firing an underperforming employee. Vanessa and I are engaged. Her father's making me VP of the Eastern Division. This. Us. It's over. Nadia. The words didn't feel real. Nadia kept waiting to wake up. I'm pregnant. She hadn't meant to say it. Not like this. Not now. But the words escaped anyway. Desperate and small. Marcus's face did something terrible. Not happiness. Not even surprise. Just inconvenience. That's your problem, he said flatly. My lawyers will be in touch about the divorce. I need you out of this apartment by the end of the month. And then he'd walked out. Just like that. 7 years reduced to, my lawyers will be in touch. Nadia had stood in that bedroom, their bedroom, for an hour after he left. She stood there until her legs gave out. Then she sat on the floor beside the spilled Italian food and broken wine bottle. One hand on her belly. And finally let herself cry. Drop a comment below, have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? Because Nadia's story is just beginning, and what she does next will change everything. Nadia spent that first night on the bathroom floor, unable to move, unable to think beyond the howling pain in her chest. By sunrise, her phone had 17 missed calls from Marcus's lawyer and a formal eviction notice sent via email. They weren't wasting time. At 6 a.m., she finally called the only person she had left. Joelle, Nadia whispered when her sister answered. I need you. Joelle arrived within 40 minutes, took one look at her younger sister's devastated face, and went into full protective mode. Pack a bag. You're staying with me. And don't argue, you're in no condition to be alone right now. Joelle's apartment in Park Slope was small but warm, the kind of place that felt like safety. She set Nadia up in the guest room, made her tea she couldn't drink, and sat beside her while Nadia told her everything. He's engaged to her already? Joelle's voice was dangerously quiet. After 3 months? Her father's giving him a VP position. It's a transaction. I was just in the way. Joelle's jaw tightened. As a criminal defense attorney, she'd seen plenty of terrible people. But this was her sister. This was personal. Let me see the divorce papers he sent. Nadia pulled them up on her phone with shaking hands. Joelle read through them once, then twice, her expression growing darker. Nadia, these are fraudulent. What? Look at the filing date. He submitted these papers 6 weeks ago. That's before he even told you about the affair. Joelle's eyes were blazing now. And this signature, this isn't your signature. He forged it. The room tilted. What? Marcus filed for divorce before you even knew there was a problem. He forged your signature on legal documents to speed up the process. That's document fraud. That's a felony. Nadia felt sick. Why would he risk that? Because he needed to be legally single before Vanessa's father would approve the engagement. André Laurent is old-school Catholic, at least publicly. He wouldn't let his daughter marry a man who was still legally bound to someone else. Joelle was already pulling out her laptop. This isn't just betrayal, Nadia. This is criminal. 1. Over the next few days, while Nadia tried to process the destruction of her life, Joelle started digging. What she found made the affair look like a minor offense. I called in a favor from an investigator I work with, Joelle said one evening, sitting down with a thick folder. Nadia, you need to prepare yourself. This gets worse. Worse than my husband forging my signature to marry his mistress. Much worse. Joelle opened the folder carefully. The words didn't make sense at first. What do you mean? Before you, there was a woman named Rachel Chen. Marcus dated her for 4 years while he was getting his MBA. She supported him financially, paid his tuition, his rent, everything. The moment he graduated and got his first real job, he dumped her via text message. Nadia's stomach dropped. That's exactly what Wait, there's more. Joelle pulled out another file. After Rachel, there was Keisha Williams. She was a lawyer, successful, established. Marcus dated her for 2 years. She helped him network, introduced him to clients, opened doors. Then, he met someone with better connections and ghosted her. Changed his number. Blocked her on everything. Oh my God. Marcus has a pattern. He finds successful women, uses them for whatever he needs: money, connections, status, and then discards them the second someone more useful comes along. You weren't a wife to him, Nadia. You were a stepping stone. The betrayal somehow hurt worse knowing she wasn't special. She wasn't even unique. She was just another mark in Marcus's long con. We need to contact these women, Nadia said quietly, her grief hardening into something sharper. They deserve to know he's doing it again. Joelle made the calls. Within a week, both Rachel and Keisha had agreed to share their stories. They met at a coffee shop in Brooklyn, 3 women who'd loved the same man, all betrayed in nearly identical ways. He told me I wasn't sophisticated enough for his new circle, Rachel said bitterly. After I paid for his entire education. He said I was too focused on my career to be a proper partner, Keisha added. This from the man who used my connections to land every client he ever had. Quote, Nadia looked at these women, both successful, both intelligent, both reduced to collateral damage in Marcus's climb to power. We need to stop him, but Joelle was already 3 steps ahead. While Nadia had been meeting with Marcus's previous victims, her sister had been pulling threads on the Laurent family finances. I have a friend at the SEC, Joelle explained one night, spreading documents across her dining table. She's been watching Laurent Industries for years. Nothing concrete enough to prosecute, but a lot of suspicious activity. What kind of suspicious? Money moving through offshore accounts. Large cash deposits that don't match reported income. Client funds being transferred in unusual patterns. Joelle pulled up a spreadsheet. Money spreadsheet. Joelle pulled up a spreadsheet. André Laurent has been laundering money for decades. Small amounts, careful timing, always just under the reporting threshold. And Marcus? Marcus is helping him do it. Since he started at Laurent Industries, the volume has tripled. He's not just an accountant, he's the architect of their entire tax evasion scheme. Nadia stared at the numbers swimming across the screen. Millions of dollars. Dozens of shell corporations. Years of systematic fraud. They're criminals. They're very wealthy criminals, with very expensive lawyers, Joelle corrected. Which means traditional prosecution would take years and might not even stick. We need something bigger. Something public. Something they can't buy their way out of. Over the following weeks, Joelle built a case that would make any prosecutor jealous. Bank records showing $73 million in unreported income. Email chains discussing creative accounting solutions. Meeting notes that were essentially confessions. She coordinated with the FBI, who'd been trying to nail André Laurent for years but never had enough evidence. They're willing to move forward, Joelle said one evening, her eyes bright with the thrill of the hunt. But they need more time to build the criminal case. At least 3 months. 3 months. Nadia counted quickly. That would put them right around. Marcus and Vanessa's wedding is in 3 months, she said slowly. I saw the save the date on his Instagram. Joelle looked at her sister with growing understanding. They're having a massive society wedding. 400 guests. Everyone who's anyone in Manhattan finance, All in one place, Nadia murmured. All watching. All recording for social media. Nadia, what are you thinking? I'm thinking that if we're going to destroy them, we should do it when they're at their most vulnerable. When they think they've won. Nadia touched her growing belly, feeling the baby flutter. When they think I'm too broken to fight back. That's dangerous. Marcus will retaliate. The Laurents have power. Power built on lies and stolen money. Nadia's voice was steady now, calm with purpose. Joelle, they hired me to sing at their wedding. Did you know that? Joelle's eyes widened. What? I got a call from their wedding planner 2 weeks ago. A high-paying gig for an elite Manhattan wedding. I didn't realize it was theirs until I asked for details. Nadia smiled without humor. They want to humiliate me. Vanessa wants me there to serve as a reminder that she won. That's sick. It's perfect. Nadia stood up, pacing now, her mind working. They want me there as entertainment. As the defeated ex-wife singing for scraps while they celebrate their victory. But what if I gave them a different kind of performance? Joelle caught on immediately. A public confession. With 400 witnesses and a dozen cameras. And FBI agents listening in the parking lot. The sisters looked at each other. A dangerous plan forming between them. This could work, Joelle said slowly. But Nadia, if you do this, there's no going back. Your life will change forever. The media attention, the scrutiny, my life already changed forever when Marcus forged my signature and abandoned our baby. Nadia's hand rested on her belly protectively. This isn't just about revenge. Joelle, this is about making sure he never does this to anyone else. Rachel, Keisha, me, we were all too isolated to fight back. But together, with evidence, with witnesses, we can end him. We can end all of them. Joelle pulled her sister into a fierce hug. Then, let's make sure you're ready. We have 3 months to plan the performance of your life. What Marcus and Vanessa didn't know, what they couldn't possibly know, was that the woman they'd hired to be invisible entertainment had just become the most dangerous person in their lives. And she was about to bring their entire world crashing down, one note at a time. The call from Patricia Simmons, wedding planner to Manhattan's elite, came on a Tuesday afternoon while Nadia was teaching a voice lesson. Miss Moreau, I have a wonderful opportunity for you. A high-profile wedding at Riverside Manor, 400 guests, excellent exposure, and the compensation is $15,000 for 3 hours of work. $15,000. That was more than Nadia typically made in 3 months. With a baby coming and legal fees mounting, she couldn't afford to turn it down. What's the date? Nadia asked carefully. June 18th. Evening ceremony. The couple has specifically requested a vocalist with your particular style. Something in Patricia's tone made Nadia's skin prickle. Who's the couple? There was a pause. A telling pause. Marcus Laurent and Vanessa Laurent. Well, she'll be Vanessa Laurent. After the ceremony. Patricia's voice had taken on a forced brightness. They mentioned they're familiar with your work. The world stopped. Marcus and Vanessa wanted her at their wedding. Not just at their wedding. They wanted to pay her to perform like a trained seal, while they celebrated destroying her life. Miss Moreau? Are you still there? Nadia's free hand went to her belly, now 4 months rounded. The baby kicked, as if sensing her mother's surge of emotion. I'm here, Nadia said quietly. And, yes, I'll take the job. After hanging up, she immediately called Joelle. They hired you? Joelle's voice was incredulous. That's sociopathic? It's calculated. Vanessa wants me there as a trophy. Proof that she won. The ex-wife, pregnant and desperate, singing at her replacement's wedding. Nadia felt surprisingly calm. She wants to humiliate me in front of Manhattan's elite. Then we give her a show she'll never forget. Over the next 12 weeks, while Nadia's belly grew and the baby became more real with each passing day, she and Joelle executed their plan with precision. Joelle coordinated with the FBI, who were thrilled at the opportunity. A public venue with 400 witnesses? It's perfect, Agent Morrison had said during their meeting. We'll have agents positioned outside. The moment evidence of criminal activity is presented, we move in. What about my safety? Nadia had asked. Marcus has a temper when cornered. We'll have plainclothes security inside. You won't be alone. The security detail was arranged under false pretenses. Joelle hired them through a private firm, claiming they were additional event staff. 2 former police officers who would blend into the crowd, but be ready to intervene if Marcus tried anything violent. Meanwhile, Nadia worked on the song. She spent sleepless nights at Joelle's piano, composing lyrics that told the truth in ways that couldn't be ignored. Each verse was carefully crafted, specific enough to be damning, clear enough that even the wealthiest, most willfully ignorant guest would understand exactly what they were hearing. 7 years I built your throne, while you sold me to the bone. The melody was hauntingly beautiful. It had to be. People needed to listen before they realized what they were really hearing. Rachel and Keisha both contributed details for the lyrics. Little truths that only Marcus's victims would know the way he'd used them. The patterns, the lies. He told me I wasn't sophisticated enough, Rachel had shared. Maybe add something about how he judges the women who built him up. The song became a collective testimony. 3 women's pain, distilled into 3 minutes of musical truth. 2 weeks before the wedding, Patricia called with specific instructions. The bride would like to speak with you about the performance details. Can you come to the venue this Saturday for a walkthrough? Nadia arrived at Riverside Manor to find it transformed into a palace of white roses and gold accents. The cost of the flowers alone could have fed a family for a year. Vanessa was holding court in the grand ballroom, surrounded by bridesmaids in matching silk robes. She looked radiant, confident, untouchable. Nadia. Vanessa's smile was all teeth, no warmth. So glad you could make it. Girls, this is Marcus's ex-wife. She's going to be providing our musical entertainment. The bridesmaids tittered, exchanging glances. They all knew exactly what this was. A power play. A humiliation ritual. Let me show you where you'll be positioned, Vanessa said, linking her arm through Nadia's with false friendliness. She led her to a small stage area in the corner. Right here. Not too prominent. We want the music to be ambient. You understand? Background ambiance. I understand perfectly, Nadia replied. Good. Vanessa's mask slipped slightly, revealing the cruelty underneath. I want to make sure you know your place here, Nadia. You're the help. You're here because I'm generous enough to throw some money at Marcus's pregnant ex. A charity case. Really? One of the bridesmaids snickered. Vanessa continued, warming to her subject. Marcus told me how you used to beg him to stay. How you cried and pleaded. Honestly, it's pathetic. Did you really think a man like Marcus would stay with someone so ordinary? Nadia let the words wash over her. Let Vanessa think she was winning. You'll sing the songs we've selected, Vanessa said, handing her a list. Traditional wedding classics. Nothing creative, nothing personal. Just do your job and collect your money. Think you can handle that? Absolutely, Nadia said with a calm that clearly unsettled Vanessa. I'll give you exactly the performance you deserve. Something flickered in Vanessa's eyes, brief uncertainty. But she recovered quickly, her arrogance returning. Perfect. Oh. And Nadia? Try to wear something that fits properly. I know you're pregnant, but there's no excuse for looking sloppy at my wedding. After Nadia left, she sat in her car for 10 minutes, hands shaking with rage and adrenaline. Then, she called Joelle. She thinks she's broken me. Good, Joelle replied. Let her think that. Underestimated women are the most dangerous kind. Nadia started the car, touching the small recording device in her purse. 2 weeks, Nadia murmured to herself. 2 weeks until they learn what happens when you humiliate the wrong woman. The baby kicked in agreement, as if to say, We've got this, Mom. Marcus called 3 days before the wedding. Nadia almost didn't answer, but Joel encouraged her to, with the recorder running, of course. Nadia. His voice was strained, nervous. I need to talk to you about Saturday. What about it? He struggled for words. I know this situation is uncomfortable, but I'm asking you, begging you, please don't make a scene. Don't embarrass me. I'm teening. The Laurents are powerful people. If you do anything to disrupt this wedding, they will destroy you. The threat was clear. But so was the fear behind it. Marcus, I'm just there to sing, Nadia said sweetly. That's what you're paying me for. Right? To be invisible background music? At your perfect wedding? I'm serious, Nadia. Vanessa's father has connections. Legal connections. If you try anything, like forging divorce papers? Like committing document fraud? Nadia let the words hang. Don't worry, Marcus. I'll be professional. I promise you'll get exactly what you paid for. She hung up before he could respond. That night, Nadia practiced her song one final time. Every note perfect. Every word sharp as broken glass. Joelle listened from the doorway, tears streaming down her face. That's not just a song, she whispered. That's a reckoning. Good, Nadia said, her hand resting on her belly. Because some sins are too big for whispered confessions. Sometimes, justice needs a stage. If you're loving this story of justice, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. Because Nadia's about to deliver a performance that will echo through Manhattan for years to come. Nadia woke at dawn on June 18th, with her daughter doing somersaults inside her belly. You feel it too, don't you? She whispered, rubbing gentle circles over the tight skin. Joelle was already awake, brewing coffee in the kitchen. She'd taken the entire day off work. No way was she letting her sister walk into battle alone. How are you feeling? Joelle asked, studying Nadia's face for signs of doubt or fear. Ready. And surprisingly, Nadia meant it. The nerves that had kept her awake for weeks had crystallized into something harder. Purpose. Is everything in place? Agent Morrison confirmed. They'll have 6 agents positioned around the perimeter, plain clothes. The security team we hired will be inside by 4 p.m., and I'll be in the crowd with the documents. Joelle poured tea for Nadia, no caffeine for the baby. The recording equipment is sewn into your dress lining. They won't find it even if they search you. Vanessa's too arrogant to think I'd fight back. She thinks hiring me was the ultimate power move. It was, Joelle said with a grim smile. Just not in the way she thought. They spent the morning going over every detail. Timing was crucial. Nadia would perform during the vows signing, the moment when all cameras would be focused on the stage, when walking out would cause maximum disruption for the guests. Remember, Joelle coached, once you start singing, don't stop. No matter what Marcus does, no matter what Vanessa screams, you finish the song. The entire case hinges on you, delivering every word. I won't stop, Nadia promised. This isn't just for me anymore. It's for Rachel. For Keisha. For every woman Marcus has used and discarded. For our daughter. So she grows up knowing her mother didn't stay silent. At 2 p.m., Nadia dressed carefully. The black maternity dress was simple, unremarkable, exactly what hired help should wear. She'd borrowed it from a friend specifically because it made her look humble, diminished. Let them underestimate her, one last time. Joelle helped her with the hidden recording device, then stepped back to look at her sister. You're the bravest person I know. I'm terrified, Nadia admitted. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right, even when you're scared to death. Joelle hugged her carefully, mindful of the belly between them. Now go show Manhattan what real power looks like. The drive to Riverside Manor took 30 minutes through Saturday traffic. Nadia used the time to vocalize, warming up her voice the way she'd done thousands of times before performances. But this wasn't like other performances. This was the most important 3 minutes of her life. She arrived at 3 p.m. as instructed. The venue was already crawling with activity florists, making final adjustments to the cascading rose installations. Photographers testing angles, caterers setting up champagne towers that would cost more than Nadia's entire car. Patricia, the wedding planner, intercepted her immediately. "Nadia, thank goodness. Follow me, you're in the service entrance. The bride doesn't want vendors using the main hall before guests arrive." Of course she didn't. Can't have the help contaminating the space. The dressing room they'd assigned her was barely larger than a closet, tucked behind the kitchen. Nadia could hear the clang of pots and shouted orders from the catering staff. She set down her bag and began her pre-performance ritual scales, breathing exercises, mental preparation. At 4 p.m., Marcus appeared. Nadia saw him through the crack in the door before he knocked, pacing outside, running his hands through his hair repeatedly. The confident corporate climber was gone, replaced by a man barely holding it together. He knocked softly. "Nadia? Can I come in?" She considered refusing, but this was too good to miss. "It's open." Marcus entered looking haggard despite his custom Tom Ford tuxedo. Up close, she could see the telltale signs: sleepless nights, stress, guilt, trying to masquerade as righteousness. "I need to know you're not going to do anything stupid today," he said without preamble. "Stupid? Like marry someone I barely know for their father's money?" His jaw tightened. "This isn't a game, Nadia. The Laurents don't play around. If you embarrass Vanessa, if you make any kind of scene, Andre will bury you. Legal fees, custody battles, character assassination, he'll make sure you never work again." "Is that a threat, Marcus?" "It's a warning. From someone who—" He struggled. "Someone who doesn't want to see you get hurt." The audacity made Nadia want to laugh. "You don't want to see me hurt? You forged my signature on divorce papers. You abandoned me when I told you about our baby. You're marrying your mistress at a wedding where you hired me as entertainment specifically to humiliate me. But sure, you're concerned about my well-being." Marcus flinched at each accusation. "I know how it looks. You don't know anything." Nadia stood, using her height and her belly to invade his space. "You see a broken, desperate woman who'll sing her sad songs and collect her check and disappear. That's what you're counting on, isn't it? That I'm too weak, too poor, too ashamed to fight back, aren't you?" The cruelty in his voice was reflexive, defensive. "I guess you'll find out in about 2 hours." Something in her tone made Marcus go pale. "Nadia, what are you?" "I'm going to do exactly what you paid me to do, Marcus." He left, but not before Nadia saw real fear flash across his face. Good. Let him spend the next 2 hours wondering. Let him sweat through his expensive tuxedo. At 4:30, Vanessa arrived for her pre-ceremony power play. She swept into Nadia's tiny dressing room with 3 bridesmaids in tow, all wearing matching silk robes with Bride Tribe embroidered on the back. Vanessa's was white with MRS, Laurent in gold script. "Ladies, this is the entertainment," Vanessa announced, gesturing at Nadia like she was a zoo exhibit. Marcus's ex-wife. Isn't it just deliciously ironic? The bridesmaids giggled on cue. "I wanted to make sure we had an understanding," Vanessa continued, circling Nadia slowly. "Today is my day. My perfect, flawless, photographed for Vogue day. You are going to stand in that corner, sing your little songs, and be so forgettable that people won't even remember you were here. Understood?" "Crystal clear," Nadia replied. "Good, because if you do anything, and I mean anything, to draw attention to yourself or disrupt my wedding, my father will destroy you." Vanessa leaned in close enough that Nadia could smell her expensive perfume. "He's done it before, ruined people who crossed our family. You're a nobody, Nadia. A pregnant, abandoned nobody singing for money. Know your place." One of the bridesmaids, a blonde with too much filler, added, "Honestly, it's kind of pathetic. Like, have some self-respect." They all laughed as if this was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. Nadia let them have their moment. Let them feel powerful. Will that be all? She asked with practiced humility. Just remember invisible and silent, except when you're singing our approved songs. Think you can manage that? Vanessa's smile was sharp enough to cut. I'll give you a performance you'll never forget, Nadia promised. After they left in a cloud of perfume and superiority, Nadia sat down heavily. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. From rage. From righteous anger that burned clean and hot. She pulled out her phone and texted Joelle. They just made it so much easier to destroy them. Joelle's response was immediate. Recording everything? Every word. It's going to be beautiful. At 5 p.m., Patricia knocked frantically. 15 minutes. The ceremony starts in 15 minutes. You need to be in position. Nadia gathered her things, touched her belly one more time. Ready, baby girl? Let's go change the world. She walked through the service corridors toward the main hall. Past bustling staff, who didn't give her a second glance. Just another vendor. Just part of the background. Perfect. The main hall was breathtaking, thousands of white roses, crystal chandeliers, golden accents everywhere. 400 guests in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos filled the space, champagne glasses already in hand. Nadia spotted Joelle near the back, looking elegant in a dark suit. Their eyes met briefly. Joelle gave an almost imperceptible nod. Everything was ready. Nadia took her position on the small side stage, exactly where Vanessa had instructed. From here, she had a perfect view of the altar where Marcus stood, adjusting his tie nervously. She could see the photographers positioning their cameras. She could see society bloggers with their phones already recording. She could see the 2 plainclothes security guards Joelle had hired, positioned strategically near the exits. The string quartet began playing. The guests rose to their feet, and Vanessa made her entrance. She looked stunning, $300,000 worth of French couture and family diamonds. Her veil trailed 20 feet behind her. Every step was choreographed perfection. The crowd oohed and awed. Cameras flashed. This was the moment Vanessa had been planning for months, her triumphant arrival as Manhattan royalty. She reached the altar. Marcus took her hand. The officiant began his speech about love and commitment, and forever. Nadia felt the baby kick hard, as if saying now, "Mom, do it now." Before we proceed with the vows, the officiant announced, our vocalist will perform a special song chosen by the couple. Patricia gave Nadia a frantic wave. You're on. Nadia stood gracefully, one hand supporting her belly. She adjusted her microphone. 400 faces turned toward her for the first time. Really seeing her. The pregnant ex-wife. The hired entertainment. The woman they could ignore. She smiled. And then she began to sing. The first note came out pure and clear, filling Riverside Manor with a sound so beautiful that conversations stopped mid-sentence. Nadia's voice had always been her gift, the thing that made people pause and listen. And right now, 400 of Manhattan's elite were doing exactly that. The opening melody was achingly lovely. Almost classical. Something you'd expect at a society wedding. For the first 5 seconds, Vanessa smiled, thinking she was getting exactly what she'd paid for. Then Nadia began the lyrics. 7 years I gave my heart, while you tore our world apart, built your dreams with my own hands. You rewrote our wedding vows to fit your plans. The smile froze on Vanessa's face. Marcus went rigid at the altar, his face draining of color. Forged my name on papers white, married her the same night. But the law doesn't care what lies you tell. When the truth walks in, you're going straight to hell. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Guests exchanged confused glances. Was this part of the ceremony? Some kind of avant-garde performance art? Nadia's voice only grew stronger, more powerful. She locked eyes with Marcus, letting him see everything he'd tried to break in her and failed. Tell me, love. Or just another woman cursed, to believe your practiced lines, while you climbed on broken spines. Stop her, Vanessa hissed at Marcus. Make her stop, but Marcus couldn't move. He stood paralyzed as his carefully constructed life began crumbling in real time. Nadia continued, her voice soaring over the rising chaos. Rachel gave you everything, paid your way while you took wing. Keisha opened every door. You walked through and wanted more. Now the crowd was truly listening. Cell phones emerged from clutches and pockets. This wasn't performance art. This was an execution. And me? I was the faithful wife. Who gave you 7 years of life? Until your boss's daughter came, with daddy's money and his name. Marcus finally broke free from his shock and lunged toward the stage, but the 2 security guards Joelle had hired moved smoothly to intercept him, grabbing his arms. "Let me go," Marcus shouted, struggling. "She's lying. She's insane." But Nadia didn't stop. The melody shifted, becoming darker, more accusatory. "Your new father-in-law's fortune clean? Not according to what I've seen. 73 million hidden away. In offshore accounts you helped him play." André Laurent, who'd been sitting in the front row looking distinguished, suddenly stood up. "This is slander. Security remove this woman immediately." But there was no security that belonged to him. And the crowd was too riveted to look away. Nadia sang the bridge. Each word, a hammer blow. "Check the dates. Check the lies. Our divorce was a disguise. You married her while married still to me. That's called bigamy, darling, quite illegally. Stop her!" Vanessa was screaming now, her perfect composure shattered. She tried to run toward Nadia, but tripped on her 20-foot train, going down hard. 2 bridesmaids rushed to help her up, but she shoved them away. "Daddy, do something." André was already trying to leave, pushing through the crowd toward the exits. But that's when Joelle made her move. She stepped into the center aisle, pulling a megaphone from her bag with one hand and a stack of documents with the other. "Ladies and gentlemen," her voice cut through the pandemonium. "I'm Joelle Moreau, criminal defense attorney. Please, everyone stay calm. And keep recording. This is all being documented for federal prosecution." The crowd went silent, stunned. Joelle held up the documents high enough for the photographers to capture. "My sister's performance isn't just artistic expression. It's a public disclosure of criminal activity. Marcus Laurent," she pointed directly at him, still being restrained by security, "forged divorce documents to commit bigamy. He fraudulently dissolved a legal marriage to facilitate this wedding." "That's a lie!" Marcus shouted, but his voice cracked. "Your signature on the divorce papers doesn't match any other signature you've ever made," Joelle continued coolly. "We had it analyzed by 3 independent forensic experts. You also filed the papers 6 weeks before telling my sister you wanted a divorce. That's premeditated fraud." She turned to André, who was frozen near the exit. "And Mr. Laurent, your firm has been laundering money through shell corporations in Panama, the Cayman Islands, and Switzerland. $73 million in unreported income over 6 years. André's face was purple with rage. "You can't prove any of this." "Actually, we can." Joelle pulled out another folder. "We have bank records, email chains, and witness testimony from 3 former employees who were willing to cooperate with federal investigators in exchange for immunity." At that moment, perfectly timed FBI agents entered through every door of the manor. Agent Morrison flashed her badge as she strode down the center aisle. "André Laurent, Marcus Laurent, you're both under arrest for tax fraud, money laundering, document forgery, and conspiracy to commit federal crimes." The room erupted. Guests screamed, shouted, scrambled for better camera angles. This was the scandal of the decade, playing out in real time, and everyone wanted proof they'd witnessed it. Marcus fought against the security guards as Agent Morrison approached. "This is insane. Vanessa, tell them we're getting married. This is our wedding day." But Vanessa wasn't listening. She was staring at her father, who was now being handcuffed by 2 FBI agents, his distinguished facade crumbling into panic. "Daddy?" Her voice was small, childlike. "Daddy, what is she talking about? What money?" "Shut up, Vanessa," André snapped. "Don't say anything. We need lawyers. Mr. Laurent, you have the right to remain silent." Agent Morrison interrupted. I suggest you exercise that right. Nadia had stopped singing. She stood on the stage, one hand on her belly, watching justice unfold like a symphony, reaching its crescendo. Marcus's eyes found hers across the chaos. In them, she saw the moment he finally understood what he'd done. Not the crimes he'd always known about those, but the magnitude of his mistake in underestimating her. You destroyed me, he said, his voice breaking. You destroyed everything. Nadia stepped down from the stage carefully, walking toward him with quiet dignity. When she was close enough for only him to hear, she spoke. No, Marcus. I just stopped letting you hide who you really are. She touched her belly. Mark, our daughter will grow up knowing that truth is more powerful than money, that justice might be slow but it's inevitable, and that the only person who can truly destroy you is yourself. Agent Morrison finished handcuffing Marcus. Marcus Laurent, you're under arrest for marriage fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit tax evasion. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The handcuffs clicked shut with a finality that echoed through the suddenly silent ballroom. Photographers captured every angle. Marcus in handcuffs, his tuxedo rumpled from struggling. Andre, being led away by federal agents, no longer the distinguished patriarch, but just another criminal. Vanessa collapsed on the floor in her $300,000 dress, sobbing hysterically, while her bridesmaids stood frozen, unsure whether to comfort her or distance themselves. Patricia, the wedding planner, approached Joelle in tears. How do we? The press is already calling. Tell them the truth, Nadia said simply. It's surprisingly liberating once you start. One reporter, young, ambitious, already live streaming, pushed through the crowd to Nadia. Miss Moreau, can you comment on what just happened here? Did you plan this entire exposure? Nadia looked at the camera, knowing millions would eventually watch this moment. I planned to sing at a wedding. That's what I was hired to do. Her voice was calm, clear. The fact that my song contained truth instead of lies, well, that's not my fault. Maybe if Marcus and the Laurents had lived honestly, there would be nothing to expose. But you deliberately chose this moment, the wedding, to reveal their crimes. I chose the moment when they thought they'd won, Nadia corrected. When they felt powerful enough to parade me as proof of their victory. But power built on lies is just a house of cards. Eventually, someone opens a window. Another reporter shouted, How do you feel right now? Nadia touched her belly, feeling her daughter kick. Free. For the first time in months, I feel completely free. As FBI agents escorted Marcus and Andre out of Riverside Manor, past 400 stunned guests and a dozen cameras, Marcus turned back one last time. I'm sorry, he said quietly. She met his eyes without anger, without satisfaction, just infinite weariness. I know you are, Marcus. I just wish you'd been sorry before it came to this. And then he was gone, disappearing into a federal vehicle, while his wedding guests watched in horrified fascination. Vanessa was still on the floor, her perfect updo destroyed, mascara streaming down her face. She looked up at Nadia, with something between hatred and desperate confusion. You ruined everything, she whispered. My wedding, my father, my life. No, Nadia said gently. Your father ruined his own life by being a criminal. Marcus ruined his by being a liar and a fraud. And you? She paused. You chose to participate in cruelty. Those were your choices. I just made sure there were consequences. Joelle appeared at Nadia's elbow. We should go. The FBI wants statements, but they said we could come to their office tomorrow, instead of tonight. Nadia nodded. As they walked toward the exit, through a crowd that parted silently, she heard whispers following them. Did you see her face? Completely calm. 7 months pregnant, and she just destroyed 2 of Manhattan's most powerful men. That voice, though, even while exposing them, it was beautiful. I'm definitely subscribing to her channel after this. Outside, the The June evening was perfect, warm and golden, the kind of night made for celebrations. Police lights flashed in the parking lot, where federal vehicles were parked. News vans were already arriving, reporters scrambling for position. Joelle led Nadia to her car, shielding her from the cameras. "You did it," Joelle breathed. "You actually did it?" "We did it," Nadia corrected. "I couldn't have." But emotion overwhelmed her suddenly. All the fear, the rage, the months of planning, it all crashed down at once. She leaned against Joelle's car and cried. Not from sadness, from relief, from the sheer weight of finally letting go. Joelle held her while she sobbed, not caring about the cameras, the reporters, any of it. "It's over," Joelle murmured. Behind them, Riverside Manor was still in chaos. But Nadia didn't look back. She'd sung her truth. Justice had arrived. And now? Now she could finally start building the life Marcus had tried to take from her. The first 72 hours after the wedding were a whirlwind that Nadia could barely process. By Monday morning, the video had been viewed over 50 million times across all platforms. Wedding Singer Revenge was trending in 14 countries. News outlets were calling it the most dramatic wedding disruption in modern history. But the real impact went far deeper than viral fame. Women started coming forward. Not just women Marcus had used, though 2 more did contact Joelle with their own stories of his predatory pattern. But women everywhere who'd been silenced, dismissed, told to be quiet about the men who'd hurt them. A woman in Chicago posted, "My ex-husband emptied our bank accounts and moved to another state. I've been fighting in court for 2 years. Watching Nadia fight back gives me hope that justice is possible." A college student in Boston wrote, "My professor has been harassing me for months. I was afraid to report it because he has tenure and connections. After seeing Nadia take on powerful men and win, I filed my complaint today." The messages flooded in by the thousands. Stories of betrayal, abuse, manipulation, and now, inspired action. Nadia sat in Joelle's living room reading them, tears streaming down her face. "This is what I meant," Joelle said softly, reading over her shoulder. "You didn't just expose Marcus and Andre. You showed people that the powerful aren't untouchable." By Wednesday, the legal fallout was expanding rapidly. The FBI investigation into Laurent Industries had uncovered connections to 3 other major financial firms. What started as one family's crimes had exposed a network of wealthy men using offshore accounts to hide hundreds of millions in taxes. Agent Morrison called to update them. "Your sister's performance started the domino effect we've been trying to create for 5 years. We're looking at potentially 47 indictments across multiple states." 47? Nadia was stunned. Turns out when you shine a light in one dark corner, people start looking in all the others. Andre Laurent was just the tip of the iceberg. Marcus and Andre's bail hearing made national news. The prosecution presented evidence of their attempted access to hidden accounts, their connections to flight risk countries without extradition treaties, their history of intimidating witnesses. Bail was denied. Vanessa attended the hearing. No longer the polished society princess. She wore a simple dress from a department store. Her hair pulled back. No diamonds. The cameras still found her. But she kept her head down, saying nothing. After the hearing, she did something no one expected. She called a press conference. Nadia watched it live from Joelle's apartment, her hand instinctively moving to her belly where the baby was practicing what felt like gymnastics. Vanessa stood at a podium, visibly nervous, none of her former arrogance remaining. "I need to make a statement about what happened at my wedding," she began, her voice shaking. "First, I want to apologize to Nadia Moreau. What I did, hiring her to perform at my wedding, was cruel and calculated. I wanted to humiliate her because it made me feel powerful. I was wrong. Deeply, unforgivably wrong," the reporters murmured, cameras flashing. "I've spent the last few days learning things about my father and about Marcus that I didn't know. Or maybe," she paused, struggling with honesty, "maybe I chose not to know. I enjoyed the lifestyle, the privileges, the doors that opened because of my last name. I didn't ask where the money came from, because I didn't want to risk losing it. Vanessa wiped her eyes, but continued. That makes me complicit. Not legally, the FBI has made that clear. But morally? I benefited from crimes. I used dirty money to buy clothes and jewelry and throw parties. And worst of all, I was willing to destroy another woman's dignity just to prove I'd won some imaginary competition. She looked directly into the camera. Nadia, I know you're watching. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that what you did standing up in that room full of people who should have been on your side but weren't, that took more courage than I've ever had. You could have stayed silent and taken the money and let us all continue lying to ourselves. Instead, you told the truth, even though it was terrifying. That's real strength. That's the kind of person I hope I can become. Nadia felt tears rolling down her cheeks. Joelle sat beside her. She's trying. At least she's trying. It's a start, Nadia agreed quietly. The ripple effects continued to expand. Laurent Industries officially filed for bankruptcy on Thursday. 400 employees lost their jobs, though the FBI worked to ensure they received severance from seized assets. Many of those employees publicly thanked Nadia for exposing the corruption before the entire company collapsed and left them with nothing. Universal Records made an official offer. A 2-album deal, worth $1.2 million, plus creative control over her music. They wanted to launch her career with a single called The Truth They Hid, a professionally produced version of the song she'd performed at the wedding. You don't have to decide right now, Joelle counseled. Take your time. Focus on the baby. But Nadia knew her answer. This wasn't just about money or fame. It was about using her voice, the gift her father had always told her to honor, to create something meaningful from pain. I want to do it, she said, but with conditions. A portion of the profits goes to a foundation for women escaping financial abuse. And I get to choose songs that tell real stories, not just commercial hits. Universal agreed to every term. By Friday, the Manhattan District Attorney announced additional charges against Marcus. Fraud, involving his previous relationships with Rachel and Keisha. The pattern of financial manipulation, identity theft spanning nearly a decade. Rachel and Keisha both released statements thanking Nadia for giving them the courage to come forward. I thought I was alone, Rachel wrote. I thought I was the only one stupid enough to fall for his lies. Knowing there were others, knowing Nadia fought back, it made me realize the problem was never us. It was always him. The narrative was changing. Marcus wasn't a successful businessman who'd made some mistakes. He was a predator with a pattern. And the women he'd victimized were finding their voices. But perhaps the most unexpected ripple came from someone Nadia had never met. A young woman named Maya Rodriguez, no relation, posted a video that went viral in its own right. I was going to marry a man who checks every box Marcus Laurent checked, Maya said to the camera, tears streaming. Controlling. Isolating me from friends. Making me feel like I wasn't good enough. Always talking about his career, his needs, his future. When I told him I was pregnant last week, he said the same thing Marcus said to Nadia. That's your problem. Maya took a shaky breath. But then I watched Nadia's video. I watched her stand on that stage, 7 months pregnant, and refuse to be invisible. And I realized, I don't have to accept this. I called off my wedding yesterday. I'm keeping my baby and building a life without him. Because if Nadia can face down millionaires and federal criminals, I can handle one narcissistic accountant. The video had 12 million views. The comments were full of other women sharing their own stories of walking away from men who treated them as accessories rather than partners. Joelle showed Nadia the video on Friday night. You've started a movement, Joelle said with quiet awe. Women are calling it the wedding singer effect. Finding courage to leave toxic situations, because you showed them it's possible to survive. To thrive, even. Nadia watched Maya's video 3 times, crying through all of them. I just sang a song, she whispered. You sang the truth, Joelle corrected. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change the world. That night, Nadia sat at Joel's piano and began writing new songs, stories of betrayal and survival, of finding strength in the darkest moments, of women who refused to stay silent. Her daughter kicked in rhythm, as if she approved. Outside, the media circus continued. Inside, Nadia Moreau was doing what she'd always done best, turning pain into something beautiful, something meaningful, something that would outlast the scandal and the headlines. She was creating art from ashes, and this time, the whole world was listening. December snow fell softly outside the windows of Nadia's new brownstone apartment in Brooklyn. A 3-bedroom place with hardwood floors, high ceilings, and a nursery painted in soft lavender. She sat in the rocking chair feeding 6-week-old Amelie, who nursed contentedly, while Nadia hummed a melody she'd been working on. The baby's tiny hand gripped her finger with surprising strength, and Nadia marveled at how something so perfect could have come from such painful circumstances. The apartment was warm, filled with the kind of peace Nadia hadn't known in years. Not the absence of problems, she still had moments of grief, still processed the betrayal, but a deeper peace that came from living authentically, from choosing truth over comfort. Her phone buzzed with a text from her producer at Universal. The truth they hid just hit #1 on iTunes. You did it. The single had been released 2 weeks ago, the professionally recorded version of her wedding performance. The music video tastefully edited footage from that night, interwoven with images of Nadia singing to her pregnant belly, then holding newborn Amelie, had been viewed 80 million times. But more importantly, it had become an anthem. Women played it at divorce proceedings. Abuse survivors sang it in therapy sessions. College students performed it at open mic nights as declarations of refusing to be silenced. The song had transcended viral moment and become cultural movement. Joelle arrived at noon with takeout from their favorite Thai place, along with a stack of legal documents. Final settlement papers, she announced, spreading them on the dining table. Marcus's assets have been liquidated. After federal fines and restitution, your share of the marital property comes to $847,000. Nadia stared at the number. Nearly $1 million, not from Marcus's generosity, but from legal right. Money she'd earned by supporting him through the years he spent building a career on lies. What about the others? Rachel and Keisha? They're each getting settlements from separate lawsuits. Rachel already received $320,000. Keisha's case settles next month. Joelle smiled. You inspired them to fight for what they deserved, instead of just walking away. And Vanessa? Joelle's expression softened. She's working as a paralegal at a non-profit legal aid office, making $42,000 a year, living in a studio apartment in Queens. She's in therapy 3 times a week. Nadia had been following Vanessa's transformation from a distance. The woman who'd once spent more on shoes than most people's rent was learning to live on a budget, to work for someone else, to understand what life looked like without her father's money cushioning every mistake. She sent something for Amelie, Joelle added carefully, pulling a small package from her bag. She asked me to give it to you. Said you don't have to open it if you don't want to. Inside was a simple silver rattle and a handwritten note. Dear Nadia, I know I have no right to send gifts or insert myself into your life. But when I saw this, I thought of your daughter. My therapist says I'm trying to earn forgiveness I don't deserve. Maybe she's right. Or maybe I just want you to know that watching you be brave enough to tell the truth changed my life. I'm becoming someone I can actually respect. That's because of you. I hope your daughter grows up knowing her mother is a hero. Vanessa. Nadia read the note twice, then set it aside gently. Are you going to respond? Joelle asked. Eventually, when I'm ready. Nadia looked down at Amelie, who'd fallen asleep mid-feeding, milk-drunk, and content. Right now, I need to focus on this. On building a life that's stable and honest and full of love. Everything else can wait. The doorbell rang. Joelle went to answer it while Nadia burped Amelie and settled her into the bassinet. Nadia, you need to see this. Joelle was standing by the door holding an enormous bouquet of flowers, white roses and lavender, elegant and expensive. The card read, "For showing me that real strength isn't about staying silent. Thank you for your courage. Maya." Maya Rodriguez. The young woman who'd called off her wedding after watching Nadia's video. She'd been sending occasional updates she'd had her baby, a boy she named after her late father. She was thriving as a single mother, building a career as a social worker, helping other women escape abusive situations. "This is the third bouquet this week," Joelle noted. "You're collecting a whole garden of gratitude. It's overwhelming sometimes," Nadia admitted. "All these people saying I changed their lives when I was just trying to survive my own. That's how real change happens. One person refusing to accept injustice, and suddenly, everyone else realizes they don't have to accept it either." Nadia's phone rang. Agent Morrison. "Miss Moreau, I wanted to give you an update. Marcus Laurent was sentenced this morning. 8 years in federal prison. No possibility of early parole. Andre Laurent received 15 years. 8 years. By the time Marcus got out, Amelie would be in 3rd grade. He'd miss her entire early childhood. The first words, first steps, first day of school. All because he'd chosen greed over integrity. "How did Marcus react?" Nadia asked quietly. "He asked if he could write to you, send letters. I told him that decision is entirely yours." Nadia looked at her daughter sleeping peacefully. "Tell him no. He gave up the right to communicate with me when he forged my signature and abandoned us. If Amelie wants to contact him when she's older, that's her choice. But I'm done giving Marcus Laurent access to any part of my life. Understood?" "For what it's worth, Miss Moreau, what you did took extraordinary courage. You didn't just save yourself, you saved countless others." After hanging up, Nadia went to the nursery window and looked out at the snow-covered Brooklyn streets. Children were building snowmen. Couples walked hand in hand. Life continued, ordinary and beautiful. 6 months ago, she'd been standing backstage at a wedding, pregnant and terrified, preparing to sing the truth to a room full of people who wanted her invisible. Now she was standing in her own home, holding her daughter, with a recording contract, financial security, and most importantly, freedom. Freedom from lies, from shame, from the weight of someone else's crimes. Amelie stirred in her bassinet, making the tiny squeaking sounds that meant she'd wake up hungry soon. "Hey, sweet girl," Nadia whispered, picking her up. "Want to hear a story about your mama? About the night she sang a song that changed everything?" Amelie gazed up at her with unfocused, newborn eyes, trusting completely. "Your mama was scared. So scared. But she did it anyway. Because sometimes, the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. And choosing right even when it's terrifying, that's what courage really means." Joelle appeared in the doorway. "You know what I love most about this story?" "What?" "It didn't end with you destroying Marcus. It ended with you building something beautiful." She gestured around the nursery, the lavender walls, the bookshelf already filled with children's books, the rocking chair where Nadia would sing lullabies for years to come. "This is the real revenge. Not the handcuffs or the viral video. This. You. Happy. You. Thriving. You. Raising your daughter in a home filled with truth and love." Nadia felt tears prick her eyes. "I thought revenge would feel different. More satisfying, maybe. More final." "That's because what you did wasn't really revenge," Joelle said softly. "It was justice. And justice doesn't end with destruction. It ends with restoration, making things right, giving victims their voices back, showing the world that truth matters more than power." Through the window, Nadia watched the snow continue to fall, covering everything in clean white silence. Like the world was being given a fresh start. Just like her. "Come on," Joelle said, heading back to the living room. "Your Thai food is getting cold, and I want to hear about the next album." Your producer said you've already written 12 songs? 14. Nadia corrected, following with Amelie nestled against her shoulder. Turns out I had a lot to say. Years of silence to make up for. They spent the afternoon eating pad thai and talking about music, about Amelie's feeding schedule, about Joelle's latest case at work. Normal things. Beautiful things. The kind of afternoon that would have been impossible 6 months ago when Nadia's life was controlled by Marcus's lies. As evening fell and Joelle prepared to leave, she hugged her sister tightly. I'm so proud of you. Dad would be too. I know. Nadia smiled. I can feel it sometimes. Like he's watching, telling me to keep using my voice for truth. After Joelle left, Nadia sat at the piano she'd bought with her first advance check, a beautiful upright that fit perfectly in the corner of her living room. She played softly so as not to wake Amelie, working through melodies for her next album. This one wouldn't be about betrayal or revenge. It would be about rebuilding. About discovering who you are when you're no longer defined by someone else's perception. About finding strength in vulnerability and power in authenticity. She played until darkness fell completely, snow still drifting past the windows, her daughter sleeping safely nearby. And for the first time in years, maybe for the first time ever, Nadia Moreau felt completely, authentically, unshakably herself. Not Marcus's wife. Not a victim. Not even just a survivor. Simply Nadia. Mother, artist, truth-teller. And that was more than enough. It was everything. 3 years can change everything. Nadia stood backstage at Madison Square Garden, adjusting her microphone before the biggest performance of her career. Through the curtain, she could hear 20,000 voices, people who'd bought tickets, who'd streamed her albums millions of times, who'd found courage in her story. Amelie was backstage with Joelle, wearing tiny headphones to protect her ears, waving excitedly at her mama. Nadia thought about that night at Riverside Manor. How terrified she'd been. How certain she was that telling the truth would destroy her. Instead, it had set her free. Marcus was in year 3 of his sentence. She'd heard through lawyers that he'd become a model prisoner, teaching financial literacy classes to other inmates. Whether that represented genuine change or just another performance, she didn't know. Didn't need to know. His redemption wasn't her responsibility. Vanessa had reached out 6 months ago, asking if they could meet for coffee. Nadia had agreed, curious about who the woman had become without her father's money and influence. They'd met at a small cafe in Brooklyn. Vanessa arrived in clothes from Target. Her hair pulled back simply, no jewelry except a small cross necklace. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness, Vanessa had said immediately. I know what I did was unforgivable. I just wanted you to know that I've spent 3 years in therapy, understanding how I became someone who could be that cruel. And what did you learn? Nadia had asked. That I was terrified of being ordinary. My father raised me to believe our worth came from our wealth, our status, our power over other people. When you exposed the truth, you didn't just destroy his empire. You destroyed the lie I'd built my entire identity around. Vanessa's eyes had filled with tears. I hated you for that. But you saved me from becoming him. They hadn't become friends. Some wounds cut too deep for that. But they'd found something more valuable than friendship, mutual understanding. 2 women who'd both been damaged by Marcus Laurent, choosing different paths forward. Now, standing at Madison Square Garden, Nadia could hear the crowd chanting her name. 2 minutes. The stage manager called. Nadia closed her eyes, centering herself the way she always did before performing. She thought about her father, who'd told her to use her voice for truth. About Rachel and Keisha, who'd found courage to come forward. About Maya and thousands of other women who'd written to say Nadia's story gave them strength to leave toxic situations. About Amelie, who would grow up knowing her mother chose honesty over comfort, justice over silence. The lights dimmed. The crowd roared. Nadia stepped onto the stage, and 20,000 people erupted in applause. Thank you for being here tonight, she said into the microphone, her voice steady and strong. 3 years ago, I sang a song that changed my life. Tonight, I want to sing songs that celebrate what came after the rebuilding, the healing, the discovery of who we become when we choose truth. The first notes of her opening song filled the arena, not the truth they hid, though she'd sing that later. This was something new, something about rising from ashes, about women who refuse to stay broken, about love that's real instead of transactional. As she sang, Nadia saw faces in the crowd, women crying, couples holding hands, young girls watching with wonder. She saw her story reflected back at her. Survival, strength, the refusal to be silenced. This was why she'd stood on that stage at Riverside Manor, despite being terrified. Not for revenge, though justice had been necessary, but for the chance to show others that it's possible to survive betrayal and build something extraordinary from the wreckage. The concert lasted 2 hours. Nadia sang 15 songs, told her story between sets, and watched the audience hang on every word. When she finally performed The Truth They Hid as her encore, 20,000 people sang along, their voices joining hers in a chorus that felt less like performance and more like collective healing. After the show, backstage, Amelie ran into her arms. "Mama sang so pretty," the 3-year-old announced, her dark curls bouncing. "Thank you, baby." Nadia held her daughter close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. "Did you have fun with Auntie Joelle? We had popcorn, and I saw you on the big screen." Joelle appeared with a grin. She was perfect, just like her mama. A production assistant approached hesitantly. "Miss Moreau? There's someone here asking to see you. She says her name is Christina Walsh, and that you changed her life." Nadia had learned that this happened at every show, women wanting to share their stories, to say thank you, to show her they'd survive too. "Give me 5 minutes," Nadia said, "then send her back." Over the next hour, she met 12 women. Each had a story. Escaped an abusive marriage, left a manipulative partner, reported workplace harassment, stood up to family members who'd controlled them. Each credited Nadia's courage with giving them permission to be brave. "I'm not special," Nadia told them each. "I was just a woman who got tired of being small. You all have that same strength. I just showed you it was possible to use it." By the time she got home to her brownstone, now expanded to include a home studio, where she wrote and recorded, it was past midnight. She carried sleeping Amelie upstairs, tucked her into bed, and stood watching her daughter breathe softly. This child would never know the version of Nadia who'd accepted crumbs of affection, who'd made herself smaller to fit Marcus's vision, who'd believed her worth came from someone else's approval. Amelie would grow up with a mother who modeled courage, authenticity, truth-telling, who showed her that real love doesn't require you to diminish yourself, that justice is worth fighting for even when it's terrifying, that your voice matters, especially when powerful people want you silent. Nadia went to her studio and picked up her guitar. A melody had been forming all evening, inspired by the women she'd met backstage. "We are the daughters of the silenced ones. We carry their stories, their battles unwon. But this generation won't whisper and hide. We'll sing out the truth, let it echo worldwide." She recorded a voice memo on her phone, humming the melody she'd work on tomorrow. Then she went to her bedroom, climbed into bed, and for the first time in years, fell asleep within minutes. No nightmares about Marcus. No anxiety about the future. No shame about her past. Just peace. Hard-earned, well-deserved peace. 3 years ago, Marcus had tried to make her invisible, hired her to sing at his wedding as proof he'd won, she'd lost, and power always triumphs over truth. But he'd miscalculated catastrophically, because Nadia had never been powerless. She'd just been waiting for the right moment to remind the world that truth sung loudly enough can't be ignored, that justice delayed isn't justice denied, and that the most dangerous person in any room is someone with nothing left to lose and everything to say. She'd learned that revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about building a life so beautiful, so authentic, so filled with purpose, that their betrayal becomes irrelevant, just a footnote in the story of your triumph. And every night, when she put Amelie to bed and sang lullabies in the home she'd bought with money from her art, from her truth, from her refusal to stay silent, that was revenge sweeter than any courtroom victory. That was freedom. If this story moved you, if you've ever felt silenced or betrayed, leave a comment sharing your truth. Hit subscribe to hear more stories about ordinary people who found extraordinary courage. Like this video if you believe justice is worth fighting for, and share it with someone who needs to know they're not alone, that their voice matters, that their truth deserves to be heard, and that surviving isn't just about endurance. It's about building something beautiful from the ashes of what tried to destroy you. Your story matters. Tell it.